We're back at Langdon Hall Country House Hotel, where it's out with the old,
checking out,
and in with the new.
And every time we order custom anything, there's that moment where I'm holding it in my hands and I'm gonna let it go. And oh, it's the exact right place.
Well, that looks pretty good to me.
That's good.
Don't you just love it that Verge matches the room? This is our teal reveal. And this may be a hotel, but stay tuned, because I've got plenty of tips you can use at home.
Here we are. We are at the end of the whirlwind. We are at the end of the design and the install and the reimagination of the Red Room. And now the big question is, what do you call the Red Room if it's no longer the Red Room? Make sure you leave your comments below, because I am open to suggestions.
It was always known as the Red Room, not because we painted it red, but because of the red flock wallpaper that was on it before we got here.
But some people always call it the Echo Room as well, with the circular ceiling.
The most interesting and the most unique feature about this room is something that I have absolutely nothing to do with, and that is the whisper ceiling. And this is the first place I've ever experienced it, and it is so much fun.
This is a very English tradition. They were called whisper rooms because women could speak in a low voice and tell stories without having to yell.
How great is that? Don't we all need an amplifier for our voice? Well, many would say that I don't actually need that because I can project with the best of them.
I've always found it a wonderful room that you weren't necessarily aware of it, so I think the chandelier that you've added brings your eye to the ceiling.
And so talk about a blank slate. Could there be anything better than starting with a room that is gorgeous to begin with, filled with history and character, oozing with charm and potential, and just ready for a tiny little makeover? I mean, the brief I was given was help us refresh and reinvigorate and make a space that can be multifunctional, that can work throughout the day and into the evening. The candles are lit. Well, the candles are lit because the power is off.
We had a lot of rooms that we had for 30 odd years. You want to respect what was done in the past, but you want to try and hit it, out of the park, so to speak, so you have new space and new places. And for a lot of our guests, things are changing and you need something different.
The life of a hotel changes every day and every week and every month and every year. And boy, what a year it's been for this hotel, because they've had to contend with the pandemic.
This table's always been here, and we can, as you can see, we can seat up to 12 people around it. The thing
Pre-COVID,
is now,
see?
Pre-COVID, exactly.
Yeah.
So now the question is, we need to make this a lounge.
And so part of the challenge that I was faced with was helping them reimagine spaces that could meet how they need to operate today, but also thinking about how it needs to work into the future. And in everything I do creatively, it's always about thinking of the big idea and the creative idea, but then I always want to pepper in a big heaping helping of practicality to think about how's it really going to work? How are people going to live in these spaces? And the fun thing about being here at Langdon Hall for me, hello, what is this?
For dinner.
So talk about hospitality. Because it's getting late, what time is it now? It's well after 6 o'clock, and the other guests, I'm not a guest. I'm here as a worker. I've just been handed the dinner menu, which is something I would love to think about. But first,
Well, the Red Room actually was the card room for the ladies years ago, and so it always was a room for sitting and casual socializing, and we made it into a meeting room, dining room, private dining room. So this transformation is probably what it always should have been. It's wonderful.
here's a fun thing about Langdon Hall that you wouldn't know. I first came here on the first television show I worked on in 1996. Yeah, that was a long time ago. And I came here when I worked behind the scenes as a prop stylist. So I have a long history here. More than 2 decades, many adventures with my husband, with my kids, with friends, for celebrations, and Being given the trust of the owners to reimagine not one but 3 rooms all at once is really special to me.
So she kind of sort of knows what she's doing. She's never done hospitality before, but it works.
It's great, eh?
Yeah, she knows people.
Actually, I have done hospitality too.
Whenever I go to a hotel, I find myself often looking around thinking, what would I do if I was given the chance? And so what was really fun about this project for me was being given the chance to reimagine existing spaces that I already knew I loved. And the best part about these spaces is they really didn't need much. And I know that I'm here in a hotel, but I want you to think about how you can take some of these ideas and bring them home. You don't have to have grand rooms like this, but the big idea that I want you to remember here is that you can make big change by changing small things. And you don't need to renovate. You know, I think in this world people get so caught up with the idea of renovating and changing everything, but sometimes all you need is a little tweak. All you need is a little refresher. You need some new color, you need some new fabrics, some new accents, and voila, the space feels completely new. Look at this, and then look back to what we started with. Does this look the same? Or does this look completely different? There was never any discussion. We were never, ever going to touch the trim, the paneling, the fireplace, the ceiling, the architecture. Nope, I was never gonna change any of that. And by embracing it and then adding in a whole new layer, you get a completely different look. So what are the big changes we've made? Oh, the color change is the best part about it.
The red room is going to become the
Smoky teal.
smoky teal
No,
room.
sorry, what was it? No. It was
Pacific Rim is what
Pacific
it's
Rim,
called.
there you go.
What I love about the color change is when I first saw the carpet that I am standing on, when I first saw this antique rug in the bar, I had a swoon moment. I am somebody, you know this about me, I love decorative rugs and I love beautiful color. And when I first saw this rug last year, when I was just here for a pleasure visit, I was so taken with this rug, and I knew that if I was ever given the chance, I would design a room from this rug, and that is exactly what I did. I took historic antique inspiration, and then I thought about how I could layer in contemporary touches that would make it feel suited to where we are right now in this moment, and think about how we could look back and be optimistically looking towards the future. Because right now, you know what? That's what we need to do. We need to look optimistically towards the future at every turn. So how do you do that? Well, for me, it means surrounding yourself with things that make you happy, things that seem cheery and fun. Because if you're on a getaway, presumably you want to have a good time. So color was where it was at in this room. And so out with the red, and in came this fabulous teal color that's called Pacific Rim. This is a really great color because it has energy, and it's amazing how compatible it is with all of the different hues that we've layered in on top of it. So if you're thinking about, should I make a change at home? Should I go for a bold color choice? I say yes. Absolutely do it. You don't need a lot of paint. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it's absolutely worth the investment of your time to create a space that feels completely revamped and re-energized. Then, after deciding that we wanted this great teal color on the walls, we wanted to rethink the window coverings, because what was here was a bit old-fashioned and a bit serious feeling to me, because the room used to be a private dining space and a boardroom. Well, it is stuffy and serious no more, and we've dressed the windows in a fabric that I love. This fabric looks like a painterly watercolor stripe, and it's printed on a textured cotton ground, so it almost has the appeal of linen. What I like about the watercolor is it lends a bit of softness. The stripe is a fabulous country element, but look how this has been reinterpreted. I'm always looking for a reinterpretation. So you think of a stripe as being a vertical element, that's what was here before, but instead now we have a horizontal stripe, which works really well because we have such high ceilings in this room. Here's something I want you to keep in mind. When you run into a challenge, I don't want you to get discouraged by it. I want you to think, how can I embrace this, and how can I make this work to my advantage. And this is a little detail, but there are two different elements about these windows that we encountered. Number one, we realized that we couldn't use just a decorative rod with rings, which we would often do as a way to lighten it up and make it feel less formal. Instead, we needed to keep the existing drapery hardware, which required a valance. And I had not been planning on a valance before. However, I thought, okay, we can make a tailored valance and it's gonna look great. Then the valances came and we'd been really tight on the fabric. In fact, we almost had not quite enough fabric. And they'd been made, but they didn't have any pleats and we didn't have any fabric left over. So the only way to make this work was to put an inset in the valance in a contrasting fabric. So it has a little pleat here just to give it a little bit of fullness. Why am I telling you this? Because it was the challenge that we faced that made it work. It was inserting this secondary fabric in the beautiful blue that we find in the carpet and that also appears in the artwork that creates this little accent. It's a little extra detail that's a little extra special element in this room now. Yet it wasn't planned. It just happened. Creativity is born sometimes out of necessity. So always think about how you can take what you're working with and make it the best it can possibly be. So what do you do if you have a room where none of the elements are quite centered, or they're centered but there's also asymmetrical elements? We have a chandelier that's centered between two windows. Then we have a fireplace that's offset on the wall. That makes things a little bit tricky. The goal here was to consider how we could have multiple groups of people in here at the same time having their own experience. So I like to think of setting up a room as creating destinations, and whether this is a room in your home or a room in this hotel, I always want to create little experiences. I want a corner that draws you in with a pair of chairs. I want the idea of having these two chairs in front of the fire so you can sit and have a fabulous conversation while the fire is roaring.
They perch over in the former Red Room next to that fire for hours on end. I think there was two ladies in there for at least 3 hours a few days ago.
Yeah.
There was another couple playing cards and having cocktails.
And people, I mean, people are aware. They're on media. So people are like, you know what? We're coming, we want to see it.
The finishing touch in this space is the table in the center of the room. Now this is something where you could lay out backgammon, a very, very popular game in my house that leads to some, how would you describe your backgammon games? Professional. I was going to say competitive was the word I was looking for.
No, you weren't. You were looking for something else.
No. Scrappy. Not with me. Professional. So what I like is the idea of having a games table. This is a place you can use it for sitting and having a drink, but also this is a place where you could play a quick game of cards or chess or what have you. You don't know how these spaces are going to be used when you're designing for hospitality. All you can do is imagine. Might you want to sit there? Might you want to lounge here? These are the things we have to think about and how we wrap it all together.
By the way, Sarah, that was great that you're using this again. It's a perfect scale for in here.
Well, it's a great scale.
Sarah just did such a great job of repurposing our little treasures, or the treasures of the house.
And it's so nice to know that it's not going to landfill.
Exactly.
Oh, I have to talk about the art. I have to tell you about the art. Oh my gosh. The best rooms are brought to life through original artwork. And this is no exception. And the amazing thing is that if you think about the chicken and the egg and you wondered which came first, Sarah, the idea for the room or finding the artwork, like, this is incredible. This was like kismet. This was deciding on a color palette, deciding on the rug, and then walking down the halls of the hotel and finding that two women I know, two really talented artists, had a show on right here at the hotel, and being able to handpick unique works of art that we could hang in this room to really set the scene. And hopefully the end result that everybody experiences is a home away from home and a place that feels comfy and cozy and relaxing, yet reinvigorating, because that is what you're looking for when you check into a hotel. You're looking for some rest and rejuvenation and a really fun time. Want to see more? Don't forget to subscribe.
And if you click the bell beside the subscribe button below the video, you'll turn on notifications and you'll never miss an episode.